Chapter 5 Spring is in the Air. The king's party is going to be put off until it stops raining, Willigumba whispered to Happy Gumble and the others nearby. So there won't be any nasty work for you for a bit. Now we've got to find a way to getting you out of the jam tins. I'll go and see if Tinking Gumble's managed to have a tink yet. He's sure to think of something. He scurried across to Tinking Gumble's tin, taking care the Bottersnakes did not see him. This was not difficult. They were all under cover so as not to get wet in the sun. The king was in his car, Chank was wearing his roof, the Weathersnake was under his bathtub as usual, and the rest were sulking beneath their pots and pans, bits of iron, mattresses, kettles, watering cans and buckets, waiting for the rain that never came. No, said Tinking Gumble sadly, I haven't had a tink, and I've tried and tried. Do you know what, Willigumble? I think I've lost my tink. Perhaps you dropped it somewhere, Willigumble suggested. I'll go and hunt for it. What does it look like? Neither knew for certain. They imagined it would be a small bag with a bell that rang as each good idea popped up. I'll get the bees to help me look, said Willie, trying to sound cheerful. They go everywhere. Willigumble went off. It was a lovely spring day with a blue sky and a breeze that blew in playful puffs, just enough to keep the leaves from dozing. Down below, flowers were warming themselves in the sun, the bitter peas, red spiders and coral heath in the damp places. Bees were busy looking for pollen and birds flying for the fun of it. Lower still, right on the warm earth, thousands of ants, bees, and spiders were on the move, each one busy doing what it should do on a fine spring morning. It is good to be friendly with these little people, Willigumble was, and very soon he had an army of ants and bees, birds, cicadas, frogs, and spiders helping him by keeping an eye open as they went about their work. But none of them saw anything that looked like the lost tink. Woof! The bush is a big place, said Willigumble, after he had been searching for a long time without success. And we're not even sure what the tink looks like. I'd better have a rest and a think. He sat on an old spring mattress in the rubbish, far enough from the Bottersnakes to be safe. The cover was quite rotten, and he fell in amongst the springs and the things that happened in old mattresses. But it did not matter. Willigumble settled in the coil of a spring and bounced lightly to help him think things over. Now I'm out, he thought, and the rest are in tins. That is. They can't get out, and I'm not strong enough to pull them out. Tinking Gumble's lost his tink, and it can't be found, and if they don't escape soon, by tinks or by think, there'll be horrible work to do for the king's party. This is serious, very serious. There came a loud laugh from the branch above his head. Ho, 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 ha, 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 ha. Kookaburra, of course. Lovely day, remarked the bird to Willigumble. What are you doing down there? I'm thinking how serious it is. Oh, it doesn't do to think, said Kookaburra. Bad for the brain. That's the trouble with you ground creatures, too much thinking, not enough flying. Look at those Bottersnakes now. What do you think they're doing, cooped up in their pots and pans on a lovely day like this? They think it's going to rain, said Willigumble. Rain on a day like this? This is the sort of day that makes you glad to be a bird, Kookaburra said. Why, it's spring in the air today. What's that? Said Willigumble, bouncing higher. What's the matter with you? I said spring's in the air. Can't you feel it? Grasshoppers, shouted Willigumble. Spring! In the air! I believe you're right. Help me, please, Kookaburra, with your strong beak, and he did a very strange thing for a Gumble. He began pulling the old mattress to bits. Everybody's mad, said Kookaburra. With the help of the astonished bird, Willigumble had stripped the rotting cover from the mattress and laid bare the springs when they heard shouting and shuffled nose noises from the Bottersnakes and saw smoke rising. Have they started a bushfire? Willigumble asked anxiously. It wasn't a bushfire. It was Chank's roof. Chank had got angry waiting for the rain that didn't rain, and his straw hat had caught alight from his red-hot ears. Chank was extremely angry when he saw that his beautiful roof was smoldering, and the angrier he became, the hotter the fire flamed. The other Bottersnakes stood giving good advice, but they did not do anything to put the fire out. Must be cozy in there with a nice fire, Snork said. But you should have a chimney to let the smoke out, said Glob. Keep still, Chank, while we cook a bit of roast. And they snuffled in high glee. Slightly overheated now, Chank started running about madly. They could not see where he was going. how those fat bottersnakes hopped when Chank and his blazing top knot came blundering among them. This part they thought was not so funny, and the king was not at all amused because Chank was coming near his car. "What's that idiot doing running around on fire?" he roared. "Sit on his head." The bottersnakes blinked at this because Chank's head was obviously too hot to sit on, but the king was angry and not to be put off. "But, King, we can't," they said. "Yes, you can," he bawled. "If he's got a head, it can be sat on, so sit on it hard and don't argue." "He'll get burned." "I don't care," the king screamed. "If somebody doesn't sit on his head in less than no time, I won't have a birthday when it stops raining, and there'll be no king's party." This would never do. The bottersnakes hurried to their jam tins and let the Gumballs go with orders to put the fire out quick smart so that Chank could have his head sat on. The Gumballs were glad to be out of their tins at last and made a great show as firefighters. First, they tripped Chank up by thrusting a stick between his legs. The straw hat had nearly burned away by now, but somehow, no one quite knew how, the fire spread alarmingly. A patch of dry, blady grass exploded into flames. Billows of vile smoke went up from an old bag that caught alight. Gumballs rushing about with hoses tackled the job manfully, but seemed to be making the fire worse. The hoses would get wound around the bottersnake's legs. Many a tail was scorched accidentally. And the noise? There was a wailing from the ruthless Chank and yelping from the owners of scorched tails, while the fire was roaring and the king was roaring and smoke made everyone cough. Altogether there was far more smoke, sparks, shouting, and confusion than when the Gumballs were safely in their jam tins. At last the king made his voice heard above the uproar. "Them Gumballs ain't doing any good. Put 'em in their jam tins and squash 'em down hard." So the bottersnakes grabbed the Gumball firemen and groped through the smoke for the tins. They popped them in and squashed them down most savagely, but instead of flattening out like lumps of dough, as they were supposed to do, the Gumballs came shooting out of their tins, as if on springs. This was not so surprising. They were on springs. Willie Gumble and Kookaburra had put a mattress spring in each tin while everyone was busy with the fire. The Gumballs headed onto the springs with their toes and went zoing, zoing, over the heads of the startled bottersnakes like rubber kangaroos. The bottersnakes were too amazed to do anything except rub their smoke-filled eyes and watch the Gumballs zoinging down the hill into the bush. Willie Gumble was bouncing along on a spring of his own. "Sorry we can't," zoing. "Stay for the king's party," zoing, he shouted. "But we have to, zoing. Go now. Spring's in the air, you know," and he bounced after the others as fast as he could zoing.